Leslie Smith, and I'm here today with a group of volunteers and staff members from For the Child. Valerie Dalk and Lisa Calamaro have been on the CART team for several years, and coordinator Isabel Pasillas and supervisor Jenny Magana. I'm going to allow them to share their experiences of what it's like to be involved with the CART team.
First, you would get a call from the forensic nurse. And I always say when we're training that the best thing to do is, especially if you're on a nighttime shift or a weekend shift, is have your bag ready by the door. And I'll tell you about the bag in a second. But you should have a set of clothes and your shoes and a purse with just the basics in it and your car keys ready and a pad of paper so that when the nurse calls and tells you which hospital and how old the child is, you can write it down really quick, because if it's 1:30 in the morning and you're woken up out of a sleep, sometimes you might be like, where did she tell me to go? So then once you have the information, you head to the hospital. Sometimes you would go straight up to the CART room. Occasionally you'll meet the client right at the victim right at the time that you get there. The police have brought them right then as well, and you would walk in together. But most of the time you're hopefully there before the child. And then you'll introduce yourself, you'll check in with the nurse, you make sure that the child knows that you're there for them. We have teddy bears, we give teddy bears to the children, even the teens, or even the 20-somethings, who doesn't love a fluffy teddy bear, right? So, and then we basically just manage the night, if you will. We help the nurse and the police officers, whatever they need done. We are that person who kind of coordinates and gets the child where the child needs to be, or the parents where they need to be. And we're part of the SART team, the sexual assault response team. So that team is made up of forensic nurses, police or law enforcement, and then the advocates, which is what we are, victim advocates. And so that's the team for the night. Sometimes there might be later a detective comes, depending on the case, or a social worker comes, depending on the case, but it's usually just police officers, advocates, and the nurse. And we just work as a team that night to get the victim the best services possible and get through the exam the quickest and most thoroughly. So we do, with the younger children, we do roll in with a bag full of stuff. And for the teens, we have everything from coloring books to games to, I don't know, like Play-Doh, whatever, although that's controversial. Every advocate has their own opinion on Play-Doh. But basically, we're just there trying to normalize the situation for the victim and for their families, right? To just try to bring the tension down, and the kids just really love to play. So usually that's just what you do. I always say, if you know how to color, you can do this job.
Mm-hmm. I think that's quite an art, to be able to calm a child down in a very scary situation. What's the biggest challenge in that?
Honestly, I'm going to be honest. It's the younger children, especially, are not usually upset. They don't, some of them don't even know why they're there. The parents are sometimes more upset than the child. And honestly, as soon as you open up a suitcase full of toys, like, the kids are like, oh, cool, let's do that. And then sometimes you have kids that are just tired because it's been a whole day, and then they just want to cuddle in with their mom and sleep. And that's okay too. We just kind of see what the child wants to do or needs to do, and we just kind of go with that. But we do get a lot of training through For the Child about how to talk to the children and play with the children. And so even if you've never played with children, For the Child will make sure you know how to play with children by the time you're done with the training.
Great. And then on a personal level, I have to imagine that a call out perhaps in the middle of the night is extremely exhausting, just from the sleep deprivation, but also emotionally draining. What do you do to replenish? And Valerie, chime in, and Isabel and Jenny, just chime in here. What do you do to bring yourself back out of what could be extremely depressing.
You know, this may sound impossible, but again, the training is so good that it's a job. You're an emergency responder. So you go, you do, and then you leave. And it is, when we get together for the monthly meeting and go over the cases, honestly, we all have to reread our cases, because we know you leave feeling like I did a great job. I helped some people in a moment, and then I'm getting back to my own life. Different advocates have different things. We used to have one that went for a donut every time after. We had one that liked to wash our hands at the end and just sort of close it down. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely cases that I will say still stick with me. I know Valerie's had those cases. I know Jenny and Isabel have had those cases that will always be with you. But for the most part, you did a good job, and the kids are happy and you're playing with them, and the nurses are so great at their job with the exams, and the police officers are doing their job, and you just kind of go home back to your life.
And we have each other.
Yeah.
Because we can always call each other when we have a hard case, or, we're just, need to talk about it, because that's who we can talk to about. But that's the great thing about our team, is that we have that support that we can call any of them anytime. Even Isabel and Jenny, they're always there, even if they read our case and they can tell it was a hard case, they will give us like a text or like, are you okay? Do you need to talk? So there are times, and I think that's what helps a lot, is that support. We have each other's back, and we understand what we're all going through.
Sometimes when we're turning a shift over to the next person, we'll even download then, like, oh, I had the craziest case last night, or, oof, this or that happened. So sometimes even when we're trading shifts, we do that by phone, then we will even have a small conversation then if the person needs to talk about something that happened on their shift.
As a supervisor, and as a coordinator, Isabel and I do make ourselves available 24/7. Whoever is on call, even if it's in the middle of the night, we would encourage them, if they had a rough, difficult call out, we encourage them to not only contact their peers, but to definitely call us in the middle of the night if they need to process and they need to talk about their call out, because we would hate for them to go back home. And unfortunately, because of the privacy and, HIPAA, they can't go home and discuss their cases and their call out with family members. And they wouldn't know how to respond anyways, So as advocates, and Isabel and I have been doing this for a long time. So we would definitely be the people to talk about the call outs with. This is why, like as Valerie said, our team is very strong, very mighty. We support each other because we've all gone through a difficult call out. They're not all the same, but there are ones that do stick with us. I've been doing this since 2007. So I have many call outs under my belt, and some are more challenging than others. This is the worst day of a child's life, of a family's life, unfortunately. And we are there, for them in that time. But we are also, as a team, there for our advocates and for each other.
So what does a shift look like?
So a shift starts with, there's two main shifts, your weekday shifts and your weekend shifts. And with your weekday shifts are normally your 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. Monday through Thursday. And weekend shifts are Friday from 5 p.m. to Monday, 8 a.m. It's a 24-hour shift. It seems long, but it actually is not. But there's also a need for your morning shifts from Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then that would help staff members at For the Child, so they can actually help with intake.
That leads us to an important part. So part of being on the CART team is committing to 40 hours of training. And so Isabel Pacias is the coordinator for the training. And thank you, Jenny, for teeing that up so nicely. And then you have this regular support. So Isabel, why don't you tell us about the training, what happens in the training and what people can expect to learn?
Yeah, absolutely. So each of our trainees are required to complete a 40-hour training. It is a training that is approved through the California Office of Emergency Services. And the 40-hour training consists of various topics that will help support and train each of the potential advocates. Topics such as sexual abuse, child abuse. We do have presentations that are hosted by the forensic nurses. So they will go in detail what they actually cover and what they're looking for during a forensic exam. We do have a training that's generally hosted by law enforcement, and law enforcement will share what their role is in regards to the child abuse response team and when we're responding to calls. We also have a representative from Department of Child and Family Services who also speaks on the topic of child abuse and neglect. So there's various topics that we cover throughout that 40-hour training. And generally, the 40-hour training is held on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And so each participant is required to commit to being available during those times in order to complete that 40-hour training. In addition to, and it is live, so it's not pre-recorded. And in addition, once they complete, they're attending each of those modules and presentations, they are required to commit to scheduling themselves on our coverage calendar, so that they can have an opportunity to complete 2 call outs. Not sure if I explained that well enough. Sometimes it's a little hard to understand, but we go over this step by step throughout the training.
And are those 2 callouts, those are the shadow ones where they're with somebody else?
Yes, they will be paired up once they sign up on our monthly calendar, and if a call comes in, they are actually going out with a lead advocate, somebody who's been on the team for quite some time, such as Valerie and Lisa. And our lead advocates are there to support the trainees.
Very good.
Yeah.
So Valerie and Lisa, what was something that you learned in the training that either surprised you or something that you use all the time?
Wow.
That's a good question.
That is a great question.
Well,
Wow.
first of all, our trainings were so long ago, but Valerie and I both help with training now. So I think, and also we've been lucky enough a lot of organizations invite us in to do additional training that's just, extra. And also as the victim profile has changed, also our team now is dealing with older, we used to only do till 14 and now we do to 21. So the victims have changed. So they've given us additional training. They continue to train us all the time. I think that's a great thing that the training does now that 13 years ago wasn't really covered.
We're very inclusive,
Yeah.
very aware of the
Yes.
changes, and we definitely, like Lisa said, we do provide additional training, and we invite community agencies to also come and train us and provide that information that we need in order to support and better provide our services and our advocacy during a call out.
Do you have representation on the CART team for lots of different kinds of people that are you open to? We need that.
We
That
need
may be where we are.
definitely, we need more representation. Absolutely. Representation, gender, color. We need representation, and we're open to receiving, anybody, and embracing anybody that can help us and support and be there for provide additional guidance to us as well.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Sure. I'm sure the teams influences the training as well. And it just sounds like it just constantly evolves, and a really great experience. So speaking of everyone can do it, Isabel, I know that you have a little checklist of some things that people need to be able to effectively volunteer in this way. Can you go through a couple of those things so people don't get halfway through the training and go, oh, I don't have a car?
Yes, absolutely. We want to make sure that if an individual is interested and ready to commit, that they do live locally. We want to make sure that there's efficient response time. And what I mean by locally is local to the Long Beach, South Bay, San Pedro, Torrance area. So if an individual lives in Lakewood, that's still kind of general to the area. Maybe
20 to 30 minutes. I'm sorry.
yes,
20
nope,
to 30 minutes.
absolutely. Yes.
So they're not driving an hour to get to us.
Especially depending on, what shift they've signed up, the shifts that they're available to commit to, whether it's evening or day. We also want to make sure that they are fully vaccinated, that they have their COVID-19 vaccinations. It is still required for our employees and volunteers here For the Child. And we want to make sure that they have a clean driving record. We do an extensive background check and require them to complete their live scan, their fingerprints. We want to make sure that they have a valid driver's license, that they have a car that is reliable. Unfortunately, if they don't have a car, because I have been asked, they can't take an Uber or have somebody, drop them off. This is all confidential. And there is a timely response when there's a call. We want to also make sure that individuals have a working cell phone, because that's how we receive our calls when we are on call. That they have access to internet and that they have email, because we do communicate quite a bit through email, through phone, and then ultimately that they have the ability to commit. To commit to signing up for a shift at least once a month. If they can commit more, that's wonderful. But we do expect our volunteers to commit to one shift, which Valerie had kind of pointed out. It's not just one day, and I think that was about it. Ultimately, it's a commitment.
Sure.
We really want
Also of a year, right, Isabel?
Yes.
A year long.
Commitment, a year long, at least a year long. Absolutely. It takes us, takes a couple of weeks, 5 to 9 weeks to fully be trained and go out on their call outs and provide that practicum, the practice call outs. And ultimately, we want them to feel like they are able to be out there. So a year of commitment would be beneficial also, to be able
And
to circulate the practicums and the practices and the
ongoing training,
trainings.
Right.
which means they would commit to attending our monthly supervision meetings once a month, which is every first Wednesday of the month. And that's when our team gets together to review each of the cases that our team has responded to. We may have, a presentation, an outside presenter to provide our team with additional training. And it's ultimately that time for our team to really support each other.
Very good. And are the trainings all at For the Child's offices? Did you mention that?
All but the exception of one. There is, as part of the training, we do take the team to each of the rooms that we respond to so that they can see the space that that the team would be working in.
Oh, okay,
So
good.
that is like kind of like a
Have
little
a little
road,
preview.
yes, and a road trip.
And then when you sign up to be on call for a shift, which seems like a really long time, but is it possible that will you have no calls, or could you be called out every night? That too.
All the above. Yeah. All of the above.
Yeah, all the above.
Yeah. But we do but we do have 2 advocates on call at all time, right?
Okay.
So now the first advocate 1 gets the call first and is expected to take the call, right? So we call it the backup advocate, but they are technically on call because let's say that, and this has happened, you have a call out and then you're driving home and you get another call out. If you've taken a night shift, which is, during the week, which is 5 p.m. till 8 a.m. in the morning, right? You may not be able to do a second shift, a second call out. So you would call the A2 to go out on that call, let's say. I think when we all start, we're all like, yeah, I'll just go turn around and do the second, the second one. But that's how you get burnout pretty fast. And so, but yeah, you could get a call every night, or you could, like, there was one time I went like 3 months without a call. It was weird, right? Like, so you just don't know. And different times of the year are a little busier than other times of the year. And so, yeah.
So one thing, if I can jump in, I always like to tell individuals that our team does not take a vacation. There is always an advocate on call every day. There are 2 advocates, excuse me, on call every day, 365 days out of the year. And if somebody on our team is not available, Jenny and I are
Will
responsible.
Definitely. Every child deserves to have an advocate there during, a forensic exam. Absolutely. So
But it is the team. I'm gonna we have them and us, right? So,
no, we're all included together.
yeah, but
we support each other.
The team is meant to take the calls because they have all these other things and they actually have clients that they work with. So yes, if we absolutely can't find someone to cover the shift, then yes, Jenny and Isabel absolutely step up and take it, because no child is ever left without an advocate. But the goal is that the team helps each other out. So if somebody suddenly gets sick, that somebody else steps in. So yeah, you may only have that one shift, but you're part of a team. And so the goal here is, or we even have situations like once a year I teach at a university. And so I would have advocates would cover me until my class was over at 9 p.m. And then I would take from 9 p.m. till 8 a.m. right? So, but somebody would be nice enough to take the 5 to 9 part of my shift one day a week.
Mhm.
So we help each other out.
There always has to be at least 2 advocates on call to provide that support. We also at times get multiple call outs at the same time. There are multiple victims at the same time within that family also. So we have teenagers who unfortunately run away and also get found or report being assaulted. So we need those 2 advocates to respond at the same time, which is why another reason why we have the 2 advocates always on call.
Wow. Well, you are definitely the bright sunshine in a very heart-wrenching situation across the board. I want to wrap up, but before I do, is there anything that we didn't address that you think people should know or you wish you had known when you started?
I wish I often tell this story in training, but I remember going to my very first practicum and driving over to it was in San Pedro, and I just remember thinking, what have I done? Like, this is the most ridiculous thing I could have ever signed up for. I'm not going to be able to do it. I feel sick to my stomach. Like a child has been sexually abused. What am I, crazy? But when I got to the hospital, and I was waiting for my like senior advocate to show up, the police officer got out of the car with this little like 4-year-old boy who was shaking, and he was like eye level to the police officer's gun, even though the police officer was being super sweet. But all of a sudden it was like, oh, I get it. Like, I get it. I'm here to play with this kid. Like, I'm here to play with this kid. How hard is that? Right. And as soon as the kid sees you with toys and a teddy bear, like, it's all going to be, he knows it's going to be okay, or she knows it's going to be okay, or they know it's going to be okay. And so I wish I had known that I could do it. Like, if that makes sense. I think a lot of people don't sign up because they think, oh, I could never go with a kid who's been sexually abused. But like, honestly, most of the cases, you're just playing dollhouse or reading or playing with cars and teddy
Yeah.
bears and coloring. Most of the cases are that. And honestly, the training is very good. And I wish that I had sort of known that on my way to the first case, that I was going to be able to do it, and that this is not a heartbreaking story every single time.
Good. Valerie?
Right. Yeah, I definitely would say that it's definitely something that you're not used to doing and or thinking about, like, oh, what am I doing? Like, why am I, everybody says like, oh, that must be so hard what you do. But really it is being that person's support. And I've shared with Isabel that there was a time where I had a really hard case, but she asked me for a hug. And it was like that moment that I was like, wow, I'm that person's support. I'm there for them. And they're going to remember that somebody was caring, and to support them, and, just talk, and sometimes just talking about video games or being, silly with them. But to get that hug was, I emailed her and I told her I got a hug, so that was just the cherry on top, and why I continue to keep doing what I do. I love it.
That's wonderful. Isabel, do you have anything else to say?
Yes. If you're even considering, being part of our team and interested in the training, just as Valerie and Lisa have shared, I mean, they are veterans on our team. They've been part of our team for quite some time. And if the thought is crossing your mind, I'd love to, talk to you on the phone, meet you in person to, share this
Answer-
opportunity.
Answer any questions and try to convince you that this is the space for you to volunteer. A lot of people have doubts and a lot of people have a lot of questions, but once those questions are answered, they feel a little bit more confident. There's a lot of heartwarming people out there that just want to help, and this is the space.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your information and sharing your heart with a child. Thank you for watching. If you want more information, please visit For the Child's website at forthechild.org. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram so you can find out when the next CART training begins. Thank you so much.